Hello, and welcome to this demonstration on configuring high-risk isolation policies in Symantec's Web Protection Cloud SWG. Hi, this is a short video on how to configure a high-risk isolation or HRI policy within our Cloud SWG, formerly known as Web Security Service. High-risk isolation is a part of Symantec Web Protection, and when you are provisioned a license of web protection, you get this web isolation underneath policy. It should be disabled. We're going to show you how to enable that. We're going to show you how to configure one HRI policy by default, and we're going to go from there. So the first thing I want to do is when I go into policy, I want to make sure that I have web isolation, the link. You can see that it is disabled. So I should be able to click the link. And when I go in here, I can see that it is disabled. All I'm going to do here is I'm going to click enabled. And once it's enabled, I'm going to click this activate policy and activate all pending policies. While this is going, I want to make sure that you understand that in order to use web isolation or high risk isolation, you need to make sure the user's browsers are configured correctly to accept isolation. By default, most browsers are not or will not accept browsers. The cause of these errors are either going to be access to their cookies or local storage being blocked by the browser, or failure to share, or failure to access the shared domain. We actually have a knowledge base article on this, so you'll have to go and configure that. I'll pop it up on the screen here, the link for that, so you can go and view that particular article. But essentially, we're going to need to make sure that our user browsers can access the cookies, the local storage is not being blocked by the browser, and that it has access to a shared domain. We also need to make sure that the SSL inspection is enabled for uncategorized and risky levels of 5 through 10, so that we can make sure that our high-risk isolation policies are monitoring all that traffic. By default here, what I've done is I've actually downloaded the WSS agent and installed it, but we can download the web isolation feature and download the certificates and load them or install them into the local certificate repository on our computers. So as you can see, I did enable this now. We're going to test this out. We're going to test out high-risk isolation because we can see that we actually have a couple of policies here. We're not going to isolate any of this SSL traffic right now. It's not being isolated, but we do have this other policy that is going to isolate our moderate levels or our risk levels 5 through 10, anything that's suspicious, and any uncategorized sites that we don't have information on. We are going to isolate those things. So to test this out right off the bat, I'm actually going to open up a new tab here, and I'm going to go to pastebin.com. If you're not sure what pastebin.com is, it's nothing more than a clear text, plain text, a website where people can share source code and things of that nature. It is considered a high-risk website, a risky website. But as you can see, I do have access to this. And actually, I'm just going to look at the source code behind this, doing a Control U. And what I can see is that this website, pastebin.com, is actually being isolated right here using this last script class line item that is being redirected to our isolation server. So now I'm going to close this out there. You can see that it's been isolated. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to add a rule here. And this rule is actually we're actually going to use the actual URL, pastebin.com. And as you can see here, all he did is went into my source destination and navigated to my domain /URL. And I've actually added this to a list of domains and URLs that I can specifically block or allow traffic to allow access to or whatever. And that's what I'm actually doing here. So when I select this pastebin.com, I'm going to click this right arrow and put it into my destination conditions and click save. And the only option I have here is to do not isolate this. So when I click this add rule, you'll see this rule gets added right above this priority one policy down at the bottom. So the first thing it's going to do is from any source, if we're navigating to pastebin.com, we're not going to isolate this. We're going to actually let this user access this as they traditionally would without any type of isolation. I do need to activate this policy by clicking that blue button at the top. And from here, what I'm actually going to do now is the same thing I did. I'm open up a new tab. When I click the new tab, go navigate to my pastebin.com. You can see that it actually opens here. And if I look at the source code behind this again, I can see now that I'm actually looking at an unisolated, non-isolated website of pastebin.com with all the source code behind it. This is all the source code that you would typically see on an unisolated pastebin.com website. So I'm going to close this, close my Pastebin site. Now you can see how this is done. We've seen it unisolated. We're going to disable this. I'm not going to delete. I'm just going to disable this by marking this, clicking disable. I'm going to activate this policy again so that these policies get flushed down to my agent here. And just to prove again that we are going to isolate this by default because it does fall into the risky level, open up a new tab, go to pastebin.com, and then let's look at the source code. And again, you can see now we're back to isolated. Close all these out. Any semantic web protection customer cannot add any new isolate rules, but we can actually add these rules just like I did with this one. We'll re-enable this one. Oops. Make sure I mark that, click enable, and activate the policy again so that we're not going to isolate this. So a semantic web protection customer cannot create new isolation rules to isolate particular websites. The only thing we can actually do with semantic web protection with the high risk isolation is create what we call bypass rules to allow us to specifically access particular categories, destinations, URLs, and of those things and mark it the verdict as do not isolate. When we do that, we can then click activate policy. Thank you for watching this short video on high risk isolation policies. Thank you.